a warm welcome to one of our regular webinar podcasts. I am Sujith Menon, working as Director Operations for Green World. We would be having our key speaker, who's also connected online. His name is Mr. Aloysius G. Pasion.
Thanks, Sujith, and thank you for the opportunity. Key takeaways for today's session: be brilliant at the basics for your PRPs. This I have been emphasizing, and even when I do trainings, coachings, mentorings of our food safety professionals in the market for MENA, we always emphasize that you need to really be brilliant. If you are not brilliant in the PRPs, your system breaks down. Okay, so you need to really be brilliant. Work on these PRPs. Make sure the foundations are strong. Make sure that implementation is strong. Don't take it for granted, because the foundation of your food safety management system relies heavily on these PRPs. Develop ownership of the HACCP at the shop floor. Again, we have described this clearly. So it should not only be the quality team who should have the ownership of HACCP, but it should be cascaded down to the shop floor. Only with everybody's commitment from each and every stakeholder of your company, of your factory, that you have quality ownership in each and every role, in each and every station, and in each and every aspect, that you will be able to have a successful food safety management system. Develop a root cause mindset. When you are encountering a particular deviation, first thing you need to do is, of course, correction. You need to manage the products that you manufacture is really handled properly in such a way that this potentially unsafe hazards or a potentially unsafe product does not come or go out of your factory. But dig deep into your root cause analysis. Determine what is the root cause, why that deviation occurred. I would recommend extensive problem-solving methodologies. So in Nestle, we have what we call a problem-solving methodology that we call a breakdown analysis for equipment, or a go, see, think, do for non-machine related incidents. Dig deep on the root cause to be able to determine why did it occur, to understand the principle why it happened, in order for you to determine what is the correct action or correct standard that you need to have in place. Usually, in my experience, the main root causes for these particular issues is because either there is no standard that is existing for that particular issue in order to manage the hazard, or there is a standard but it is inadequate or it was not correctly followed. The third root cause is then it's an act of God. But basically, in our experience, it's either the standard is not there or it is not followed correctly. Validate and verify your control measures. This is very, very important, because you really need to make sure that your control measures are capable and that you verify it, that it is still functioning as per the intention that you have for your control measure. Do this regularly in order for you to make sure that you don't have a false confidence on your control measure. Lastly, implement a release system based on your HACCP as a plan, as a foundation. So if you have HACCP strongly in place with your PRPs as a foundation and having it as a basis for your release system, then you can be sure that the product that you release to the market is safe. One additional tip is that I know there's a lot of companies that they employ third-party certifications, all consultants. There's no problem with that. But It's just that there are instances that there are companies that they let the third-party consultant do everything for them. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it would really be great that you take this your consultant to have them to build your competency of your team, and then your team does the HACCP studies, does the validations, does the verifications. Because in the end, if there's going to be any other audit for their facility aside from the third-party certification, they will be the ones who should who should explain the methodology and how they come up with this particular control measure and how it is going to be managed. Yeah, just as a tip, I know there are limitation on the resources. This we fully understand. Fortunately for Nestle, it's not the case, but um, build the competency of your team. Yeah, you can use the consultants to develop your competency, but in the end, you should have ownership of your food safety program. You should have ownership of your HACCP studies and your PRP verifications. Okay, so that's it from my side. This is just some HACCP preferences that that you can look at in order to enhance your food safety management system. You can use it as a
Right, Aloy, that was definitely a wonderful walkthrough of what HACCP and what food safety in a nutshell is supposed to be, particularly when we have corporates or when we have individuals who are trying to put that into their workplace. I picked up a few questions. We were actually answering most of them in the background. My colleague Shankar and myself, we tried to make best use of the Q&A session. However, we have picked up a few which might be of interest to you and that you could elaborate. One of the most common questions that came up was, uh, what would you say would be the ideal differentiation between a PRP and a HACCP? Because both concepts have pretty much a similar approach. I understand PRP is a prerequisite which is in place. HACCP also has a PRP embedded, but what would you identify or what would you advise as the difference between the two of these?
Okay. And for the HACCP plan, it is hazard specific, where a PRP is not hazard specific.
Right.
That is the main difference. Yeah. So
Okay.
PRPs, they maintain the hygienic production environment. So it is not specific to a particular hazard, but like for example, when we say construction, when you say utilities,
Right.
some of the PRPs, they are not hazard specific. Although you can have um, specific some dedicated PRPs, like say for pathogen monitoring, but it is not specific to a particular hazard. While a hazard plan is specific.
Right.
So as I identified earlier, like for example, when you talk about let's say a pasteurization as a critical control point.
Hmm.
So which particular hazard is it eliminating? Maybe
Right.
salmonella, it may be E. coli
E. coli.
0147. So it depends. But when you say, for example, for hand washing, it's
Hmm.
not specific just for salmonella. So
Right.
it's not specific to a particular hazard. So this is the main difference.
Right. Perfect. Thank you for that, Aloy. And another question from one of our attendees was, what methods would you sort of say would be employed for an effective root cause analysis in food safety management system, or is there any ideal sort of approach that needs to be there for a root cause analysis?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, in Nestle we have two types of problem-solving methodologies. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, where I'm talking about those issues that you need to resolve within, let's say, 48 hours.
Right.
So either if it is machine related, we do a breakdown analysis to determine what is the root cause for the particular breakdown. And we also do what we call go see think do. It's a very good tool because it implies that you go down to the shop floor, you see where is it happening, and then based on that, you take the standards that you have in the shop floor that is pertaining to that particular incident, and then you review the standards, and then you do a fishbone, and we do what we call a 5 whys.
Right.
So determining what is the probable root cause, why it happened, and then digging deep of
Mm-hmm.
what is the real root cause. That's why it's 5 whys. So
It's 5 whys.
why did it happen? Then you go to the next why, and so
That's
on
right.
and so forth until you determine whether that particular issue is because there is no standard that is existing for that particular element, or there was a standard but it was not followed correctly.
Right. Good. Perfect. Thank you for that, Aloy. I've got a whole range, but I've just put down another interesting question that's come up is would you is nutrition deficiency covered under part of hazard analysis?
If the nutrition deficiency makes the person sick, yes.
Right.
But if it does not make the person sick, then it is not a hazard.
So
Because
if I were
normally
to
in
sorry to just rephrase the
sure.
same question, if I were to say that a certain processed food, normally processed food packaging does come with what are the nutrients in it,
Mhm.
but obviously in the way that the food is made, it's got a certain percentage of a nutrient that is there,
Yeah.
but a little bit of or a lack of that particular nutrient doesn't mean that the product is hazardous. It's just that the way the product is designed. Okay? That's how we
Yes.
would put it.
So you're talking about the nutrition compass, right? That is in the
Yes,
food products.
that's right.
So
Yeah.
normally it's a regulatory concern. So meaning you're declaring a particular nutrient for a product that is not really true. So
Hmm.
it becomes now a transparency from the point of view of the food manufacturer. But for HACCP, we focus on an overdosing or underdosing that
Hmm.
is related to a claim, and then eventually the person becomes sick. Then
Right.
it becomes a food safety concern.
Concern. So
Yeah.
right. So if it only goes into having a significant impact on an individual or the end consumer, that's when I think that's the right term to use. That's
Yeah.
when we would classify it one last question for you from all the pool of questions we have. We'll take these questions aside separately, just in the interest of time. I'm just putting it in, and that is from one of our attendees who's asked what would be the vital role of employees training towards implementation of an effective FSMS, as a food safety management system.
It's very important
Hmm.
because, as I said, employee training, they need to have an understanding. In order for you to build a food safety culture, you need
Hmm.
to start with the understanding. And this is what you need to make sure that this is strongly in place. And one of the best way to encourage this is through trainings. Although trainings, when we look at competency development, it only comprises 10% of the competency building process. In Nestle, we have a 10% of training, 20% in coaching, and 70% is on experience. So training is an essential part because you build the understanding, and but you need to follow it up. You need to follow it
Right.
up with coaching activities. You need to provide examples. If they can shadow you and you can show them and involve them in your HACCP meetings or annual reviews, this will be great in order for them to be exposed to see what are you talking about, what do you really want to achieve, because in the end everybody in the company wants to make sure that there's no food safety issue, that food safety is non-negotiable, because if you have a food safety issue, then your product is tarnished, the, the reputation of the company it goes down, and then eventually the business goes down. So
That's right.
in the end,
That's
so the everybody in the company suffers.
that's true, Aloy. And that's one of your key pointers that you mentioned in the takeaways as part of your closing point in the webinars as well. So with that, Mr. Olay, I'd like to thank you so much for being a part of the session this evening, and it's been really wonderful. We've got a lovely set of questions that's come in, so we're going to try and put that out. I'll take them offline to see if there are any one-off questions that we can answer to our attendees. And for those of you who have been a part of our event this evening, I'd like to. I know I've found a lot of messages from. Many of you have just tuned in from the Philippines, and I know it's a little past midnight at the moment, but
Yeah.
really thank you. Thank you so much for your time, for being a part of this event. It really shows us that you've taken quite a bit of effort to
Yeah.
tune into this
I
webinar.
really would like to say that I hope that I was able to add some value to the participants, and maybe to enlighten them on what are the really essential that you need to have in order for us to manufacture food that is safe, because um, all our loved ones, all our families are consumers. So it is, for me, it's really a responsibility for us to make sure, because it is we cannot ensure that maybe the product that we manufacture, if there is a failure in our food safety system, that it is consumed by one of our family members. So
That's
it's
correct.
really important. Yeah.
It's
Thank you.
it's one very precious circle of life that we say. What goes around comes around. So it's always there in all the details that we take care of before it goes down. Perfect.
Yeah.
And for the learners, one of the main questions that they've asked in this podcast was about your e-certificate. Your e-certificates would be made available to you on your emails in the quickest possible time, but ideally that would be 7 working days. We would have to analyze the list of attendees, and we would make sure that it's sent across to your emails. I have a copy of this this webinar video as it's being recorded. It will be hosted on our website, on our platform. You will have information about our speaker for today on our website, which is about Mr. Aloysius. So you can feel free to even get in touch with Mr. Aloysius at any point of time. Not to worry, I'm not going to broadcast his telephone number. Never that way. We make sure that we keep our speakers' identities confidential possible, but definitely if there is a point of interest, we would always try and link up the speaker. So with that, we'd like to conclude the session for today. Thank you so much once again for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Aloysius. It's always a pleasure to have you on board. We are definitely looking forward to seeing you on one of our future events as well. And I'd like to think from what Greenworld could do from our part, we would always host such similar events in the months to come. And yes, always please do tune into our sessions or webinar podcast. Thank you. Wish you a pleasant evening. Please stay safe and take care of yourselves and those around you. Signing off for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Stay safe. Bye.